Alright guys, welcome back to another video, just touching on some of the community updates we received for Battlefield 6. Battlefield Studios has published the full breakdown of the Top Gun update. This is considerably more substantial information about what we have coming into the rest of the season. So all of this information is coming from the community update on the Battlefield webpage. And this provides information about the Wake Island map coming into the next half of the season. With carrier-based HQs, a heavier naval combined arms focus. Carrier strike has teams capture sectors, attack the opposing carrier, and eventually enter the vessel for a final assault. That all sounds fucking spectacular. Genuinely can't wait for that. But again, you look back at BF4, which launched over a decade ago at this point. It had that Naval Strike DLC. 4 maps, okay, it launched with 4 maps, and you had a game mode specifically for this. It wasn't some kind of LTM, so I'm hoping that this carrier strike mode, this Top Gun shit, whatever the fuck that, isn't a LTM that's just going to fade away in about a week or two. Fighter sweep adds jet combat and ground target destruction, but only as a Red Sect gauntlet mission. Again, it's like the whole thing with LTMs and these gauntlet missions, I don't think really captivates the audience. There's just so much more they can do with Red Sec. There's so much more they can do with Fort Linden. I still believe that they need to get that whole experience into the base game as a map. You've got downtown, the marina, golf course, defense nexus. All of that needs to be subdivided maps which you put into the base game, so we can play fucking Breakthrough, so we can play Rush, so we can play Conquest on those maps individually. Can you please get those into the game, please? It's just a waste of content at this point. We can see two two-seater jets coming into this update. The FA-81F Super Spectre and the F-74A Seacat. Now, I know this game hasn't received much love in terms of jet combat. The maps are just way too fucking small in this game, so it is nice to see some attention brought to that. What specifically they're going to do with the customization on those jets remains to be seen. Again, this is a 2-seater. I don't remember Battlefield really offering 2-seater jets in the franchise before, so maybe that will be some kind of unique addition to the sandbox. Moving on, we have the Interdictor sniper rifle, which will dictate sniper combat, so I can interdict my dick. I'm joking. I don't know why they've come up with that really strange naming convention for this sniper rifle. It's like they tried to copy the Intervention from Modern Warfare 2, but it's the failed version. And yeah, one sniper rifle going into the rest of the second half of this season. It's not great. Like, is that it? Is that all you can do? Much of the sniper rifles in this game feel really similar to each other as well. But we'll have to wait and see what they deliver with this particular weapon. Moving on to the ADS Dispersion Crosshair. Now I'm going to briefly take a look at what they've written on the patch notes, because this is just bizarre. We've heard that it's not always clear how sustained fire and movement affect weapon accuracy, particularly while aiming down sights. Again guys, I am driving, so relax. To make that behavior easier to understand, we're introducing an optional ADS Dispersion Crosshair. When firing an automatic weapon while aiming down sights, the indicator will expand as dispersion increases, showing that your weapon is becoming less accurate during sustained fire. Movement will also be reflected, helping you better understand how your accuracy changes while repositioning or engaging on the movement. Do we really need to waste time on this? Please let me know in the comments what you think about this. I'm not particularly interested in this as a feature. It would make logical sense to introduce a firing range where you have this as a training mechanic. That would completely justify it, but to have this in the game as a feature which you can just slap on and off, I think is really going to fucking break this game, if you ask me. I think this is just going to make the game that much easier. This is a really casual game. There is no skill gap here. There is no bullet drop. Weapons just fucking go in straight lines, and it's a really casual experience. And on top of that, we're adding this feature, this ADS dispersion rate, which I think mechanically, or well, at least visually, will function like Crosshair Bloom in order to tell you these really minute stats whilst you're in game. All of it is contributing to that really cluttered HUD display ultimately. So yeah, I think this is just a really unnecessary feature. I think would be better reserved for a firing range, and that test environment really needs to be brought back from BF4. It's really simple, like a small... How fucking hard is it to reintroduce a small island with all of the vehicles on there, a few targets here and there? Come on. Custom lobbies and spectator mode finally arriving through Battlefield Labs in live, initially supporting only Conquest and Battle Royale quads. Now again, this is all day one content which launched in BF4 over a decade ago. It is a useful addition to the game, although it is coming in really late. Custom lobbies, spectator mode, seem like really basic features. I'm not sure why it's taking so long to get into the fucking game. Portal's experimental advanced editor introduces terrain editing and height maps. That is fucking crazy. Terrain painting and baked lighting, but access is initially restricted to selected creators. That sounds really fucking crazy. I'm really interested in what they're doing with that and how that's going to shape Portal experiences going forward into this game. As you know, I am very interested in making maps. I have played some Portal experiences and genuinely surprised what people can do with it. I don't know how people were making maps, but it seems as though they were using maps already in the game as a template, and then you would just build off that, and there was just no terrain editor. So the fact that we're finally getting the ability to access height maps, terrain painting, really makes this thing that much more appealing. Yeah, I can't wait to try and experiment with some of that. Suru Reef becomes available for Portal experiences. Wake Island receives broader custom experience support later. So that basically is adding Suru Reef to the template lists of maps that you can build from on Portal mode. And again, with Wake Island possibly coming in there as well. All again sounds really promising. Actually, I'm quite excited for that. And it's starting to sound a lot closer to the classic Battlefield fantasy that this game should have actually launched with. We've got carriers, naval HQs, island assaults coming into this game, and that proper combined arms warfare. A mode resembling carrier assault is what this game needs right now. And they're starting to begin restoring those social spaces within this game, those community features Battlefield 6 should have arguably launched with. So it seems as though the game is starting to shape up. But I kind of wanted to expand on some of the content coming into the next half of Season 4, because this isn't just some cosmetic crossover at this point. The August 18th update is bringing in Wake Island, which is a returning map. This is a classic. It's not exactly the hardest map to remake. Okay, they are building off of BF5's version of Wake Island. Obviously, save time in laying down geometry and assets and such. We've got 2 new vehicles, 2 new aircraft coming into this update, a carrier strike mode, spectator mode, custom lobbies, portal tools, and again, gameplay changes. I do briefly want to touch on those gameplay changes very quickly. From what is written on the update, in regards to its gameplay, they've said thank you for continuing to share feedback on gunplay. TTK and Time to Death, our goal is to keep combat responsive and rewarding while making sure players have enough time to understand what happened and respond when a fight begins. As we shared previously, our initial findings showed TTD increasing across most weapons and ranges following the last major gunplay update. Now, in terms of gunplay, the way the game feels right now, the game feels pretty responsive. However, there are moments when you are getting killed around corners. There are hiccups here and there where you are shooting someone and it seems as though bullets just aren't registering. In terms of TTK, I think this is more in line with an issue with weapon balancing and damage models and such. You've got weapons like the AK which just don't seem to do shit. I know that is a weapon that is supposed to define medium to longer range distances. However, up close, it's ridiculously fucking weak. It's like shooting paintballs. I do believe, honestly, that they need to add a fucking firing range into this game, returning from BF4. That needs to be in this game. People need a place where they can test out vehicles, where they can test out their weapons, not just some fucking target practice range in this game. So they do need to work on an addition to that. This all feels like unnecessary changes which don't really need to be added to the game. Maybe there is a space for that. I personally think they do need to add content in terms of maps, game modes, that needs to be coming into the game. So far, everything sounds promising from what we've read so far in the update coming into the next half of the season. It's finally being pushed towards that naval sandbox it should have delivered with Suru Reef. But the studio, it still feels like they're selling potential before proving the fundamentals even work. The Top Gun update is coming on August 18th. And for once, This actually looks more substantial than another bundled, overpriced cosmetic. Wake Island is returning. We are getting new jets and a new carrier strike mode, custom lobbies, spectator mode, portal upgrades, and some much needed attention to air combat and gunplay. But this update also raises a bigger question. Why is it taking the development team this long to begin acting like this is a Battlefield game? Suru Reef, it gave us a really decent tropical map. However, it was just one map, and it doesn't really work well on Breakthrough, and it doesn't really make use of the sandbox edition of the attack boat. So Wake Island is basically an edition where the studio now have a chance to prove that they understand the difference. Okay, they could reintroduce those missing elements that Suru Reef just doesn't have. It's not just a nostalgic map, it is one of the clearest tests of whether the game can support proper combined arms warfare. This is exactly the kind of layered Battlefield design that has been missing for too many maps in BF6. Again, infantry need a way to advance through these maps without feeling like they're farmed into every angle. And the carriers need to feel like real pieces of the battle, not just some distant scenery. That's the issue I found with Suru Reef. When you're playing on Breakthrough, much of the spaces within the map just become an expensive scenery. I'm worried about how Breakthrough is going to play on Wake Island. Suru Reef, it basically failed to fully land. It had the ocean, it had the islands, it had that visual aesthetic, it had the fucking attack boat, but the map just lacked tactical structure. They didn't design the map with the fucking attack boat. How do you do that? You don't have access to the attack boat until the last section of the map. Like, what are we doing? Jeez, man. And the Battlefield has had better naval maps before. You had Parasol Storm, Hog Island, Nashir Canals. Even some of BF4's weaker maps understood that coastlines and carriers and boats were part of that Battlefield rhythm. Wake Island needs to be more than Suru Reef at this point. And this is where I'm really concerned about Carrier Strike, because it could be brilliant or it could just be another temporary gimmick. The Carrier Strike mode, it sounds promising on paper. Teams fight for sectors, gain openings to strike the enemy carrier. Then the battle ends with an assault inside the vessel once it has taken enough damage. This was one of my favorite game modes back in BF4. I really fucking loved this game mode. You fight for control over key sectors on the map, and then eventually you push towards the enemy carrier stronghold, and you take out the final MCOM on that base. It was just such an epic game mode. This is the right idea going forward. It creates an actual match flow. Fight for the island, use vehicles and aircraft to weaken the enemy, then push the job aboard the enemy carrier. That is absolutely epic, and you have to nail it in BF6. But again, the studio needs to get the execution right. There is tons you can do with Suru Reef again. There are a lot of really interesting play areas. You've got the hotel, you've got those military bases, you've got those civilian suburban zones on the island, and again you've got those coastlines. They do need to emphasize vehicular combat on this map. Okay, we need to see the attack helicopter, maybe introduce the Little Bird on there, more attack boats. They don't have hovercrafts on this in this game. Again, we do have rib boats and such, and again the map's geometry does provide an additional problem to the experience here. It is quite elevated terrain, so that does kind of mess with the vehicular combat a little bit. But again, if the objectives are poorly placed here, a vehicle can become irrelevant halfway through the match, and it will just collapse into those familiar problems, those CQC problems that we're just exhausted with at this point with BF6. Carrier Strike is essentially the blueprint for that naval combat warfare that the season should have launched with. There's just no excuses. I mean, it is crazy. Moving on to those two jets now, the update adds two two-seater jets. Now again, these are welcome additions to the game sandbox, because BF6 vehicle sandbox has needed more variety. Unfortunately though, I don't think these vehicles can carry over into other areas of this game, like the base maps. Will we see these vehicles return on maps like Liberation Peak, for example? I don't think so. I don't think that this game has any more space. They made this game really fucking small. And that two-seater aircraft can create that proper pilot and gunner teamwork gameplay that this game could use right now. But there are still some important questions here. What are their roles? Are they built for air superiority? Are they built for some kind of ground attack, anti-vehicle work? Or is this a compromise that ends up doing nothing particularly well? Where do we use these vehicles apart from this one map? You know, again, this opens up another opportunity for them to port over Fort Linden and that experience into the game, and maybe we could introduce these 2 jets into that. That sounds like a really good idea. They do go on to highlight some simple jet controls in the update. That is sensible for players who want to learn aircraft. Is it easy to learn how to use these jets? I'm not much of a jet user myself. However, I would like to try this vehicle from time to time. And now moving on to that one sniper rifle which they've added into this map. One sniper rifle is, in my opinion, not enough to carry the infantry side. The Interdictor, again, fucking ridiculous ass name that is. It's just one sniper rifle coming into the game, and it's just not enough, especially in a patch being promoted as a major Top Gun event. This is an air and naval update first, and that's fine, but the studio cannot keep treating weapon additions as tiny garnish around the real content. But you need to provide a lot more at this point. The game is lacking severe content. Players at this point need meaningful weapon variety, better balance between underperforming guns, and clearer class identity at this point. And the studio still, again, the studio says that they're monitoring TTK and time to death and such. I don't know how it's taking this long to nail it, especially with the minimal weapon list that we have in the game currently. Their goal at this point should be reliable netcode and weapons that actually have distinct roles. So custom lobbies and spectator mode are finally coming into the game, but I have to ask why through labs. Custom lobbies and spectator mode are perhaps the most important long-term addition here, particularly for creators, for tournaments, private games, community events, and so on. This is genuinely good news. However, Battlefield should have had these social tools embedded in this game at launch. They are arriving through Battlefield Labs in live and initially support only Battlefield Royale quads and Conquest mode. So there is still a lot to be desired here. This is a very limited first step, not a complete server ecosystem, and there's still no real information on the server browser at this point, which we know is coming later into fucking season 5, which is just way too late. And again, all of this is feeding into the idea that the content which should have been here at launch is slowly being reintroduced into the game. This is all functionality that should have been here in the first place. And again, we still haven't got any real justification for why this was all missing, for why they've forced this dumbass live service on us. Portal mode, huge potential here, but it's all still gated behind that coming in the future bullshit. So again, portal mode has some serious upgrades too. Now again, this does all sound really fantastic. Terrain editing, terrain painting, bait lighting, and a custom Operation Metro experience used to demonstrate the new tools. That all could be massive, I'm not gonna lie. We could start to make maps that do look really detailed, that do actually have some map terrain geometry to it. Currently, they have said that this advanced editor is initially restricted to selected creators. Everyone else is being told to keep building in the shit state that they currently are and hope they get access later on. That's just not good enough. We need updates rolling out now. Portal's entire value is letting the community repair and expand and reinvent the game currently. When the official content pipeline cannot keep up, that's a problem. So when you're locking its best tool behind a limited program, that's again weakening the strength, and time is ticking for this game. Players are leaving. We need to bring back that substantial audience who left this game. So give the community the tools, the features, and that is how Portal becomes a genuinely long-term platform instead of a menu tab at this point. People forget this even exists because the tools just aren't appealing at the moment. That terrain editor, I think, could really intrigue people into this Portal experience. So to basically conclude this, the Top Gun update is a step in the right direction. I have to give credit where it's due. I think they are making some positive changes here, some much needed change to the game. Wake Island, Carrier Strike, new jets coming in, spectator mode, custom lobbies, and again, Portal improvements. That all gives BF6 some real substance, but we'll have to wait and see how this all plays out with Wake Island. I do honestly believe that 2 maps focused on naval warfare is not good enough. Again, you go back a decade ago, BF4 had 4 maps. They all launched in one cohesive DLC, which were dropped in a timely fucking manner on one date. It wasn't spread out between 2 months. What are we doing here with BF6? I'm hoping in the future we just drop the live service. In terms of the new map, Wake Island, they do really need to design this map around tactical strategy. Okay, if this map doesn't work on breakthrough, if the flag capture points aren't adequately spaced out on conquest mode, there's going to be problems. And I'm hoping that they just don't fall into the same problems they have done with Sulu Reef. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one, guys. I shall see you in the next one. Please let me know how you're feeling about this update coming into August 18th.